So, I'm working on two different presentations that I'm going to be giving in Boone County this evening. The first one is how to connect the dots to the Koch brothers PowerPoint, and I'm going to be showing the players that have been involved at the national level, and then kind of dig deeper into who the players are in Kentucky, and specifically who those legislators are. There are about 14 legislators, or I should say elected officials, because I include Matt Bevin in that count, who are, in my mind, showing ties to ALEC. So I'm traveling to Boone County tonight to help folks there understand how to identify these symptoms of the Koch disease and what to do about it. And there is one in Boone County. One of the 14 is in Boone County, and that's Stacey Earle. And after a Republican school board member, stepped in at the last minute to run for state representative in Adia Wushner's spot, because he was pro-public education, Governor Bevin appears to have recruited someone to run as an independent and has been actively campaigning on behalf of this individual. So I think Boone Countyans are aware of that fact, but they may not know the ALEC connection, and they may not know why Bevin is so hot and heavy to keep his ALEC slot in that seat, because Adia Wushner was one of the original Dirty 14, so Filthy 14. So I'm going to share some of those thoughts, and then I'm going to share a little bit about my personal experience as a parent of a priority school student and what I saw, how I saw these schools being made into sacrificial lambs, because it seemed inevitable that charters were coming anyway, so we might as well dress them up and make them easy pickings for these for-profit corporations that are going to be swooping in here to save the day. And my son's school was appears to have been set up to fail for at least a decade. And so I started exposing some of that. I started speaking at board meetings. So I'm going to share my journey into how I became a public education advocate and how I became aware of these threats. And since Jefferson County was a target, and Shawnee was a target and probably still is, but our audit, we got a stay of execution basically on our audit, so the state takeover is being postponed being delayed by 2 years, and this legislature needs to get its fingers in these charter operatives that are using their legislators as puppets, need to get their fingers in our pie so that it will be a lot harder for us to get them out. So they're speeding up the clock, and they've come out with new regulations that label half of our schools in our state as failing. That's straight out of the Koch playbook. They've set other barriers, graduation requirements, so they can be able to say less students are now graduating. They've lowered teaching certification requirements so they can start recruiting teachers for less pay when they start to get their charter schools open. And they're coming to Boone County. They're coming, I have a list of Boone County schools that I'll share. They're coming all over the state, and they can't wait for 2 years to get their fingers on Jefferson County, so they're coming for you now. And by 2019, 2020, you can count on some of your schools being converted to charters, unless you get rid of these filthy 14. It's pretty easy. There's just 14 candidates we have to make sure don't get reelected. And Stacey Earle is the independent in Boone County that we're here to talk about. And I think the last thing I'm going to leave them with is you should ask yourself why a 54-year-old privileged white woman from Louisville, Kentucky would drive or have someone drive her. I'm recovering from back surgery. Why would a week after my back surgery I have someone drive me to Boone County to share this message. What's in it for me? So there's absolutely nothing in it for me. I see what they're doing. I've seen them do it in other states. I see that they have done it in other states, and I don't think it's right. I don't think that because Kentuckians are trusting and honest and polite, that they should be taken advantage of just because someone has the money and the power to buy seats in the legislature and hand them legislation to pass through their supermajority House and Senate and governorship of our state. Just because they can doesn't mean I think that they should, and I'm doing everything I can to help people become aware of who's behind this and what they can do about it before it's too late. November 6th, 2018 will be too late. You have 1 week to get the message out to as many people as you can. And in Oldham County, just yesterday, a postcard went out that said call to arms. The Oldham County Republicans have issued a call to arms. Now, it may be a figurative expression, but with the tensions and the murders and the hate crimes that are popping up and the bombs, not bomb threats, but actual bombs that are showing up across our country, do you really think a call to arms is a responsible thing to do? And as someone who respects the Second Amendment, but is a pacifist by nature, instead of a call to arms, I'm encouraging all means necessary. And what that means is, for those of us who don't think violence is the answer, that means use our pen. Our pen is our weapon. The pen is the sword. Pick up your pen, write a letter to your editor, write emails to your friends, get on social media, talk to your neighbors. You have 1 week to get the word out about what is about to happen if we don't vote for people who have the Commonwealth interests at stake, at heart. So, use your tools, use your weapons. Let people know that these people who have come here and taken advantage of their power and their money are not welcome here. And we've got some serious things in the future that we have to be aware of. We have to be aware of gerrymandering, because whoever gets elected in this next race, in the next 2 races, can call the shots for how districts are going to be remapped. And if you want to make sure that it's people who have the common good in their heart instead of their own personal good and selfishness in their heart, then again, voting for people who are going to represent Kentuckians is important, not people who are going to represent corporate interests and greedy interests. And so that's a big issue coming up. And the Constitution is at risk. There are people who want to reopen our nation's Constitution and destroy it. And it's kept us in pretty good shape for the last 200 years. We do have a crisis on our hands. And it's time that America wakes up and takes responsibility for protecting things like the Constitution and rights of individuals, and protect against discrimination and the civil rights that people should hold sacred. We do hold sacred. Those need to be protected. This is a dire situation and a dire election. So for the most part, I'm going to say vote Democratic. Vote for Democrats, because in Kentucky, every single person who voted for a charter school in 2017 was a Republican. So vote for Democrats. Vote for people who voted against the charter school bill. So there were 8 Republicans that did that. Some of them are up for re-election. Vote for people who have signed the pledge, the Save Our Schools Kentucky pledge, to fully fund our schools, to repeal the charter school bill, to protect public schools from having money taken from them, protect our students, such as to repeal the gang violence bill, because that harms our vulnerable GAP kids that are a big target of the charter school movement and this over-policing that we've started doing in our schools. Instead of having counselors and smaller class sizes and actual resources to learn, we've started policing our students, especially our students of color. This is nothing new. We've been over-policing our students of color for generations, and the numbers need to change. Those numbers need to change, and the only way we can do that is to stop over-policing and start investing in our students in the front end and make sure that our schools are geared toward educating all students, regardless of their background, regardless of their abilities, regardless of their ethnicity, their poverty level, their trauma. We've got to meet students where they are, and a standardized test prevents us from approaching education with compassion. So we need to get rid of high-stakes standardized testing. These are all things that we've known. If you listen to educators, they've been saying this for quite some time. Our legislators often don't send their own kids to public schools, so they don't have the knowledge and personal experience of what needs to be done in our schools. They run with these sound bites that ALEC gives them, and they do more damage, more harm than good. And Kentucky led education reform in 1990 with KERA, the Kentucky Education Reform Act. And Kentucky can lead the nation in education reform again by being the first state to repeal the charter school law and not allowing outside corporate interests, greedy billionaires, and hedge fund managers from coming in and siphoning money out of our public school system. We can be the first state to repeal that bill and reject this assault that is taking place on our democracy. And that is why I've had someone drive me an hour and a half from my home a week after back surgery to get this message out. And so, thank you for listening.